is Sunday, January 22nd. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Hello, I'm Stephanie Guadian. For the next half hour, we will be talking about the record-breaking nearly $669 million EPISD bond being put into action, plus the decision to extend Superintendent Juan Cabrera's contract to 5 years and give him a raise of a little more than $45,000. That brings the superintendent's base pay to almost $350,000 a year. The move causing a backlash from some in the El Paso community, including some teachers. Tonight we will hear from the president of the EPISD Board of Trustees and the president of the El Paso American Federation of Teachers. We want to hear from you tonight as always. Remember, you can email us your comments and your questions right now to ABC-7 Extra at KVIA.com. You can also reach us at 915-496-1771 and tweet me at Guadian, ABC7. Just remember to use the hashtag ABC7Extra so we can find you. Here's a little of what Superintendent Cabrera said in an interview with ABC7 shortly after being awarded his contract extension and pay raise.
We've got a lot started, quite a few initiatives. We've invested millions of dollars in a number of programmings, and including the fact that we just passed this large bond, which is at least 5 years worth of work. And I'm very interested and excited about the confidence from the trustees to give me another 5-year contract and to then make sure that I'm around to finish the work that we started.
And joining us now, my guests tonight are Dory Fennenbach, EPISD Board of Trustees President, and Ross Moore, the El Paso American Federation of Teachers President. I want to thank you both for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. I want to start with you, your reaction and the reaction from some teachers to this raise.
They were caught by surprise, and there was an initial, and there still is, an underlying tone of anger. But instead of taking the approach of yelling, carrying on, ranting, and raving, we've been working with district now for 2.5 years since I've been president, trying to build a constructive relationship. So what the El Paso AFT looks at this is the reasons the board gave the superintendent the raise. The successes, the retention of an employee, and the stabilization of the fiscal future of the district, those apply just as much to my members, if not more, because the successes, for example, they're based on the folks in the classroom or the counseling center or the cafeteria's work. Retention of good employees, the fact is there has been a little progress in salaries and wages over the past couple of years, but it's barely matched inflation, and by the time other factors kick in, it's almost a non-raise. The successes, so the fiscal stability is there to now give real and meaningful raises, and in district and the board have been talking continually about wanting to do it. Now the opportunity presents itself to do it. And the last factor, the retention of good employees, reality is EPISD is at the lower end of the scale for both Region 19 and the major urban districts. It makes it less competitive in attracting high-quality professionals, be it diagnosticians, speech-language therapists.
All right, so let's stop a second and give Dory a chance to respond to that. One thing that he mentioned was that some of the teachers felt caught off guard. In the El Paso Times today, there was an editorial that also said the question may be the transparency of the way, the process that the superintendent was given the raise. Did you take that into consideration?
Well, the process is every year in January we evaluate the superintendent, and we have the opportunity to extend, renew, or not the superintendent's contract. And so I'm a little surprised that there is some surprise about that because that it's every year in January. The transparency that was expressed in the El Paso Times, I think what is interesting to me, and I think should be noted, is that no one is saying that superintendent hasn't deserved this increase. And we have, I believe, one of the top superintendents in the state of Texas, and we used a process where we evaluated the compensation packages and base salaries of the top 20 superintendents in Texas. So it was all based on very sound logic and reasoning. No other employee, their contract is negotiated and open. Every year it always is negotiated in closed session. So there was nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, we were very careful not to do anything that would be out of the ordinary. So everything we did is in line with what every other school district in Texas does. The 15% increase is related to him outperforming we had 16 goals set for the superintendent. He has met or exceeded our expectations and has been a big part of helping reestablish the trust that the community has placed in our district, as evidenced by the historic bond that tells us that our community is ready to invest in our schools and our school children. That would not have happened without his leadership. However, what Mr. Moore brings forth, we hear and we're concerned about. We have an excellent relationship with AFT, and we are grateful to Mr. Moore for bringing forward our teachers' concerns. Nothing matters more in the success of a child and our student than a good teacher in their classroom. And just like the superintendent, if we want top quality talent, we have to compensate to attract top quality and retain top quality. And over the last 3 years under Superintendent Cabrera and the 2 years under the trustees, we have invested over $30 million in additional salaries and compensation. Unfortunately, at the same time, as Mr. Moore mentioned, much of that has been eaten up in the rising costs of health care. We are asking the state legislature to change state law and allow EPISD to opt out of the TRS active care that we are obligated to stay in and never have an opt-out option. That is because of Superintendent Garcia got us into that. But we are actively finding ways to get out of that and find other ways that we can help alleviate that burden on our employees. So if I could just say one more thing. I know I've said a lot. I don't want to take up all the time, but this is our budget cycle. January is to evaluate the superintendent. In June, we set the budget for next year, and tomorrow morning, in fact, we have a budget meeting where we will begin to evaluate and look at a report that we had commissioned on employee compensation, and we'll be studying that over the next few months and set an appropriate budget in June that will adequately, hopefully, continue to make gains in the compensation of the rest of our employees.
And Ross, your argument is not necessarily that the superintendent doesn't deserve that raise. You just think more of the money should be coming back towards the teachers?
I'm not trying to be glib, but Ms. Fennenbach just made the argument in terms of the accomplishments that are based on, and it's not just classroom teachers, it's all the employees of the district. My local represents everybody but administrators. And the arguments you've made are the ideal arguments that say they deserve a real and meaningful raise this year, not what industry normally calls a cost of living increase.
Okay. And I also would like to remind everyone that in the compact with the voters, we committed the savings associated with the consolidation of schools, which we anticipate to be between the 9 and 10 million. We've committed those in that compact to compensation for employees.
All right, I've got to take a short break. We're going to be right back. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. When we come back, the nearly $669 million bond being put into action. Which projects could be addressed first? And if you would like to share your comments or questions, you can call our comment line, 915-496-1771. And if you're online right now, you can also email us, ABC7Extra at KVIA.com, and tweet me at Guadian ABC7. Just use the hashtag ABC7Extra. We'll be right back. So we have a Okay. No stress. All right, so we'll take a couple callers. These are probably going to be on the. All right, welcome back, everyone. We want to get to our callers tonight. Go ahead, first caller.
And I would think that the gentleman would be kind enough to forfeit that raise to a teacher or maybe two low employees, such as a custodian or, cafeteria worker, whatever. I just really think that that's too much money for any CEO to be running a school district. I hope he has enough heart to forfeit the money or give to some of the employees or put it into the school district some other way.
I think that's a very good point. And I know it sounds like a lot of money, particularly El Paso standards, but we have to look at, if we're going to attract and retain the best talent, including for superintendents, we have to compensate adequately. And if you look at what superintendents make around the state, the top 20, the range is between $300,000 and about $390,000. And so we placed Superintendent Cabrera. I feel like he's one of the top superintendents in the state, and so we felt like we had to compensate him adequately so that we could make sure that there is stability and longevity in the district. The data is clear that top-performing districts begin with strong, stable, centralized leadership, followed with earned campus autonomy. And we feel like we have made great strides. Again, Superintendent Cabrera has led us at a time, our most difficult and challenging times in our district's history, and has not only met but exceeded our expectations and have brought our community together. And we've never been in a better place or time for student success in EPISD than now. So we wanted to reward that and send a big signal to our community that superintendent is here to stay, and we're looking forward to progress yet to be made.
Okay, and to the caller's point, we understand, the point that he was trying to make, but that certainly would not, that would have been a drop in the bucket to what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And what we've asked for and proposed to both the board and administration is that for the hourly employees of the district that make less than $40,000 a year, that they receive a 4% raise. They are the ones that are hurting the most. Now, this year we made some progress working with the board, and the minimum salary now for hourly employees in the district has been raised to an even $10 an hour, which is a big step forward. I'd like to see more for certified employees, teachers, librarians, counselors, diagnosticians, and the hourly employees making over $40,000 a year. We have proposed a 3% raise. And for administrators, a percentage means actually more than it does for the hourly employees, we proposed either a 1 or 2% raise, focusing on the employees in the district that are barely scratching by in terms of health care.
And what is the plan for the raises? Is there one?
So tomorrow morning we begin our finance committee meeting, which is open to the public. We will begin looking at the teacher compensation, in fact, employee compensation study, not just teachers. And, as we've done over the last 3 years with the Board of Trustees and Superintendent Cabrera, continuing to find ways to take money out of operations and put them in the classrooms. And that means improving employee compensation. And as I mentioned, over the last 3 years, we have added over $30 million in employee compensation. And that as long as the health insurance keeps ticking up, they're not seeing that difference, all that work that we do. So we've got more work to do there, and we're committed to it. And I think that what we're inching up, but I think the important message to our community is that we've shown the commitment, and now's the time. We understand. We've had success, and we're ready. And so we have about 3 months to find the money and deliver that to our employees. They've earned it as much as the superintendent and the rest of our staff.
Let's go ahead and take one more call. Go ahead, caller.
It's real disconcerting to know that the board took care of the superintendent first, when the real success belongs to the staff and the teachers of the schools. They can barely get a 1.52% raise, but the board doesn't think twice in giving him a $45,000 raise. Is that fair?
The math is to give a 1% raise district-wide is about $3.5 million. So there's a lot more maneuvering that needs to happen in order to give meaningful raises. As Mr. Moore said, if we're looking at the 4 or 5% raise, that's a significant amount of money.
What kind of maneuvering?
Continuing to drive out costs. We've had several efficiency studies to take out costs in maintenance, facilities, transportation, food service, on and on. Everywhere that we can reduce personnel that aren't needed, anywhere like that we can, and then school consolidations. We have more schools than we need. So those are all the studies that we have begun over the last couple of years and have resulted in savings, and just continue to keep squeezing out operational costs so we can put the money where we need it.
Okay.
And from our part, Ms. Finnenbach, for the next 4.5 months, plan to see Federation members and myself at the board advocating. We're not going to get up and rant and rave or anything like that, but advocating in a positive manner, fact-based manner. This is why these raises are deserved. And the first fact we give you is the arguments you made for the superintendent's raise, again, apply to our folks as much, if not more.
All right, so we want to move on
Yes.
from that. We do have the record-breaking bond. The new year will be the start of many changes at the El Paso Independent School District. Officials are working to begin proposed projects after a nearly $669 million bond was approved by voters last November. Here is EPISD Superintendent Juan Cabrera.
So you'll see a shift in the work. We probably spent 70% of our time on governance, policies, procedures, the things that a district needs from a foundational standpoint. And as we make that switch, not that we weren't focused on kids, it's just that the board itself had to really work on that to make sure that we complied with TEA regulations and move forward and moved out of their oversight.
All right, welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. Joining us again, my guest tonight, Dory Finnenbach, the EPISD Board of Trustees President, and also Ross Moore, the El Paso American Federation of Teachers President. Thank you both very much for joining us tonight, and congratulations to you. I haven't really had a chance to catch up since November when voters passed that bond. Tell us about the work that has been happening since then, since the election.
Well, we have hit the ground running, and I want to say thank you to the community for coming out and supporting our schools and our school children. This is an historic bond, largest in our school district's history, and we are not going to delay on the projects that we've promised the voters. As you recall, we had a compact with the voters unique to EPISD. Districts across the state do not do this, but we are legally bound by this compact with the voters to deliver on the project as promised. So in 2017, you will see we've already hired the bond program manager. We have established the Citizens Bond Accountability Committee. Their first meeting will be next month. We will start design with our schools. We'll be purchasing buses. We'll be purchasing middle school laptops, and we'll be replacing the athletic turfs. That will be 2017. We'll start breaking ground in 2018, beginning with the consolidations, because that's going to help us realize the savings, the efficiencies. And then finally, we will end with the K-8s and high schools, and the middle school and high school rebuilds.
Okay, well, now I interviewed you before the election, and at the time you weren't quite certain if you were going to be in favor of the bond. Do you have any concerns moving forward now that the bond has passed?
At this point in time, no. Our local will be the labor representative on the bond committee. The board, the trustees, administration know that we're watching them closely. A lot of the reservations I had ended when, after a lot of discussions between the trustees, Mr. Cabrera, and myself, that three-point contract with the people of El Paso was passed. It is the only one in the state of Texas. It's been reviewed both by the American Federation of Teachers General Council and the Texas AFT General Council, and they know they've made a deal they can't really back out of.
Okay.
Because we aren't going to let them.
Okay, we have a tweet that we want to share. This is from Luz Munoz. They ask, how soon will EPISD consolidate schools? Wasn't that still the plan after, fooling folks to vote for the bond?
The plan is, it's a 5-year plan, 3 to 5 years, and as I said, the first year will be mostly design, and then we'll start letting contracts probably this fall or first part of next year. We'll break ground on the first school in 2018. We'll lead with the school consolidations, as I mentioned, so that we can realize the cost savings. First school opening will probably, I anticipate, be in the next 2 to 3 years. I think that communities will have at least a year notice if they are going to be needing to move schools, or if their school is going to be consolidated into another one. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for the community to be involved. AFT, our teachers, students, business leaders, community members will have opportunities to come to board meetings to participate, to be a part of committees that will be happening on campuses led by principals that will help and redesigning the schools. How exciting is this for our communities? And absolutely, we expect our community to be involved and be watchful and make sure that we keep these programs on time and on budget. And we're going to help you do that, because we're going to put them all on our website, and there will be a dashboard that's real time online. Anyone can go and see exactly where the projects are and how we're progressing on them.
How the money's being spent. Okay, we want to get to some more callers. Go ahead, caller.
That pay raise is as much as a teacher makes in a year. I mean, come on, people. We're just throwing money around. I mean, this is ridiculous. And he should not accept that pay raise, or at least a more modest one, but not no $47,000. Come on now, people. We need to stand up and say something about this.
Okay, so we're back to the pay raise again, and this just brings up a question. How do El Paso teachers compare to other teachers, say, in Texas?
We are clearly behind in adequate compensation for teachers. We started behind when the trustees were elected 2 years ago, and we have work to do. We realize that, and we're working towards that. And you have to look at what our peers in our region are paying, but also peers across the state. We can attract talent not just within El Paso, but across the state if we can attract talent to El Paso. But the reality is most of our teachers come from El Paso and can be developed here in El Paso, but they need to be compensated very well, and we realize that. But there are different scales. If you have to look at what a teacher makes and pay them adequately compared to their peers, that's different than what a superintendent makes. It's different than what a principal makes. It's different than what an hourly position, for example, might make. And when evaluating the superintendent's contract, we had to look at their peers and make sure that we were compensating him so that El Paso can attract and retain the best in the state. And we do feel like we have one of the best superintendents in the state. But I should mention that he's been in El Paso 40 years. I'm sorry, for 40 months. Probably seems like 40 years. And at times, he's been here 40 months. This is a one-time increase. It's the first merit-based increase that he's received since he's been here, and we just signed a 5-year contract, and we don't anticipate that we're going to be going through this again. So if you look at it, this
And welcome back, everyone. We want to get Dory's reaction to what he just had to say about the salaries.
So Mr. Moore has been a great partner with us and has come to the meetings consistently to help us find ways to look at personnel in particular and other ways that we're looking to reduce costs. And we'll continue to do that and work with him. But it's also, I wanted to make 2 points. First of all, we can't fund recurring expenses such as a teacher's increase out of general fund. General reserves is one-time shot. You spend that, it's gone. You got to have a replacement plan. That's our rainy day fund. So this has to come out of our operating budget year to year. And it is not just about increasing teacher salaries or employee salaries. We are going to look at schedules. We're going to look at class loads and teacher-student ratios. All of those things, when we mix them and we try to give the teachers a little more space, breathing room, time in the classroom, time to prepare, all of that costs money. So all of those things, and I think that what I'm hearing from AFT that the teachers want, it'll be a mix of all of those things. And the challenge for us is to find the sweet spot that helps our teachers perform at their best and continues to inch up the compensation until we are paying, I hope, that certainly the best in the region and the top in the state. And we'll get there. It's just going to take a little bit more time because it's much bigger shift to turn that we're working on.
We want to tell people that this is money that cannot come out of the bond.
If the trustees or the board, there are two different types of money, operational money and infrastructure money. And if you use bond money to pay my members' salaries or wages, they're going to jail. It's illegal.
No salaries, the superintendent's contract, nothing, none of those comes out of the bond funds. The bond funds are committed as we described in the compact with the voters. With the exception of the consolidations, we are expecting to realize operational efficiencies of $9 to $11 million. I'm sorry, $9 to $10 million, and we have committed those to improving employee compensation.
Okay, she mentioned class size.
And we've been discussing this not just now. This has been a long-term discussion we've had, but it is kind of coming to a head now that the fiscal future of the district's at least stabilized. We've been advocating, and we're going to continue to advocate for real, meaningful class size limits that are actually enforced. By state law, you have a 22 to 1 ratio limit, 22 students per teacher at K through 4. That's state law. We need to make sure that's lived up to, not just in terms of the spirit, the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. And when you look at 5 through 12, you get class sizes in core subjects, 35, 38 people. Having taught for 13 years at Andrus, if you put 35 teenagers in my classroom at a time, I'm not teaching. That's a student management session, not a teaching session. And when you look at the total teacher loads, which comes into the schedules that we've been talking again with administration for almost 2 years now on, it takes amount of time. Parents want their students to have good, solid feedback and meaningful assignments. Administration wants that. The boards, so we can create critical thinkers and contributing citizens. But if I have 210 students, and let's say I give them a 3-page report to write or project to build, if I give that 1 minute, that is 3.5 hours minimum. And in 1 minute, I cannot provide the guidance, the nurturing, the feedback, the, hey, you did this great. I've just got, I might as well just grade papers by weight in a minute. You can't do what everybody expects us to. And that's why I'm saying we've got to look at overall student loads, not just individual class sizes. And yes, there's classes like football and band that you're going to exceed, but I've asked for a 30 class limit. This is good for the students, this is good for the parents, because they have expectation of my members that my child is important and you better treat my child as important. And that's a righteous expectation. Nobody's arguing against that. It's we need the time and we need the lower density of students so that we can actually provide that feedback to them.
You got to be thinking about that as you look ahead to consolidation.
Yeah, these are all very important issues and things that we'll be looking at and finding a way that we create the right mix that creates the maximum benefit for teachers in the best learning environment, teaching environment in our classrooms. And so we'll be doing that over the next 3 months. We set the budget in June, and at that point, hopefully we'll have great news to report. And but back to the superintendent, just if I could leave us with one last food for thought. The superintendent, the average tenure of a superintendent in Texas is 3 years. And you just can't build a stable, strong, progressive district with that kind of turnover. And Superintendent Cabrera has been with us 3.5 years. We've just signed a 5-year contract. 8 years is going to put us in a very, very strong position. So I'm feeling great about where we are in the district and our relationship with our teachers and teachers organizations. And really, the best is yet to come.
All right, well, thank you both very much. I know we could talk for hours, but unfortunately we're out of time. I want to thank you very much for talking to us tonight and staying up late. You have been watching ABC 7 Extra. Have a great night and a great week ahead.